Hello and welcome. It's In the Know, brought to you by the Racing Post and Coral. Is it that time already? 5 weeks to go until the Cheltenham Festival. I think it's about time someone started talking about it. But we've got a weekend behind us of Dublin racing fun to review as well. And we currently have 4 championship races ahead of Cheltenham, with 4, depending on where you go to, odds-on shots at the top of the betting. And all 4 of them are exactly the same favourites as they were at this point last year. What's the point of doing all these previews? Just copy and paste from year to year, right? Well, we're here for the next hour anyway, so let's see what we can pick out. We are live and interactive for not only tonight, but the 4 Mondays after this as well. Looking back at the weekend's action and then focusing on 3 races each evening and trying to pick out the scraps of any value. Because let's be honest, by this point, a lot of it is on the table. But because there are such short price favourites, it might well be that we can find a few big each-way plays to get stuck into. But of course, the big question for a lot of you out there as well, you'll be playing at Ackers and backing a few in multiples as well. Are we with them? Are we against them? What do you reckon? Let us know in the chat. Hello to Stacey Dawson, to PM Ray, to Dan YouTube, to David Watchman, to Rufus the Robin, to Saints, and to Brian Galt, and many, many more as well. Get involved on the chat. Let us know what you thought of Dublin and what you think of tonight's races, which are going to beat the Supreme Novices Hurdle, the Arkle, and the Champion Hurdle. And of course, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and like the stream, please, so we can feed that almighty algorithm. Look, the best news though is that like a Greek hero off on an odyssey and coming back with a decapitated head covered in snakes or something. Luckily, we are back in the studio with the one and only. It's Hercules himself, Mr. Paul Kealy. Look at you. Where have you been, lad?
I've been away, been doing things.
You've
been to Dublin.
You've been to Dublin?
I've been to Dublin.
Yeah.
It was good fun.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Voice has gone.
Yeah, this is. I mean, you've been doing the morning shows at Dublin as well. So this is. You're
long days. Yeah.
You're in the wrong routine, really, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's night time now. I need my bed.
Yeah. Normally, after 2 weeks, if you're getting up early and 2 days in Dublin for a weekend, I reckon 6 o'clock's about the time when you go to bed, isn't it, on a Monday? Normally.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
For most people.
I'll be straight to bed when I finish here, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Well.
But we'll get through it.
Yeah, we'll get through it, absolutely. Did you enjoy your weekend?
Yeah, loved it, yeah. I mean, Leopardstown do it so well. They did it better than ever this year. They made it all ticket. You know, it was €50 for a weekend ticket. Like, you know,
it's not bad.
7 grade ones. Like, you know, yes, it's, you know, some of the races aren't too competitive, but I mean, it was just a great experience for everybody. I think that there were no queues like there were last year when they when they let the best part of 5,000 more in. It was limited to a certain figure, and it was just perfect in every way. Yeah, loved it.
I think it's €50 to park for a day at Cheltenham, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's not far off, is it?
That might get in. Did anything this weekend change? Well, obviously get a proper review, but did anything change your mind, or was it all fairly what you were expecting to unfold?
You know, we're going to talk about Kopeck de Board in a minute anyway, but I mean, you know, it barely sort of crossed my mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was one win in a maiden hurdle when pulling hard and jumping poorly, but still winning easily. So
you look at a horse like that, he'll make a nice horse in time, but you.
Yeah, and again, we had no real clue how good Final Demand was.
Yeah.
Right, you know, so these horses come out. You know, I had thought all year long that Gaelic Warrior would get beat at Leopardstown and then go to the Arkle with a massive chance, and now I'm not convinced he's quick enough. Champion Chase, yeah. And now I'm not convinced he's quick enough anymore.
Yeah.
Although the ground was quick enough, I think it was bottomless ground, didn't he?
Yeah. We'll get into the proper review in a second, but So it's so there was okay. You've had your mind changed a little bit with a couple of those, but as we stand, Mr. Tom Segal. I just had a look. We've got, on day 1 of Cheltenham currently, we've got 4 favourites of 2 to 1 or under. 2 favourites on day 2, 2 favourites on day 3, 2 favourites on day 4. So, look, as an anti-post tipster like yourself, you're gonna have to be throwing some arrows at some long shots, aren't you? Because the markets are very tight indeed.
Exactly. It's really hard to tip horses at short prices anti-post. It sort of goes against the grain, doesn't it? You know, 2 to 1 or under 5 weeks before the off. I don't think any of us had backed horses at that, at that sort of price normally. But, I think 16 horses in the last 5 years Willie Mullins has had under 2-1, and I think 14 have won. I think the only two that lost were Galopin des Champs, who would have won, and El Fabiolo, when Galopin fell over. So, trying to find, I spend hours looking at these races trying to find one, and then the obvious goes and wins more often than not. So, as you say, it's not the easiest task. And sometimes I think, maybe I should be taking these Willie Mullins ones at 2-1, but then you just don't know what price they're going to be on the day. They're going to be similar, bigger price on the day, so you can't really do that anyway. So it's a hard game.
Yeah, or alternatively, for example, you do what I did, and you take El Fabiolo at 8-1. He opens up 9-4 and makes it to the second fed. So even if you beat the market, you've still got to jump round, haven't you?
It was funny that, wasn't it? Because quite rightly, you identified on Friday night, and a few of us all did, that he was the wrong price. Problem is, we all seem to forget that he can't jump. Do you know what I mean? He was the right price if he got round, but the last two times we've seen him before Saturday, he'd taken every fence with him as well, hadn't he? So, that was you sometimes get confused by the price rather than by studying the horse. Do you know what I mean?
And it was another weird one as well. That look, we'll get to that in a second. But the other thing I'm just going to say to you is that the other thing I was looking at as well, which I thought was quite interesting about the markets and the favourites. So we've got 10. What have we got? Yeah, 10 of those favourites, 2-1 or under currently. 4 are trained by Mullins. 4 are trained by Henderson. I think from what I was looking at, I might be
2 by Elliott. That's right.
2 by Elliott. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Doing that today. I've been doing that exactly column today.
But obviously, interestingly, the last 2 years, Henderson's had 1 winner at Cheltenham, and Mullins has had 15. So you've got Mullins has got 4 favourites, Henderson's got 4 favourites. Yet Nicky Henderson's had an absolute shocker over 2 years. Obviously, if you go back a couple more years, and last year was a very different thing. But it's just interesting, isn't it, that when you sit here at this point, how much a good Nicky Henderson horse can affect the market. Everyone still absolutely loves a Hendo hot pot.
It's true, but I think he's got some hot pots, hasn't he? I mean, I don't want to be laying John Bont. I don't want to be laying Constitution Hill's a funny one. I'm not totally convinced, but I think he'll still probably win. And I certainly don't want to be laying Sergino. So, I don't know. I think he's got the best top-notch horses he's had for some years. I think he might win 4.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. And then, he had 4 winners in 2019, 4 winners in 2020, and he doesn't send anywhere near as many, obviously, as Willie does. But it just intrigued me that how much it is sort of Mullins versus Henderson again the last few years. But
it's funny, isn't it? I was writing that today in a column. But most sports move on, don't they? Pep Guardiola sort of moves on to his sort of acolytes, Arteta and Maresca, and all those ones sort of come along and take his ideas and move them on a bit. And we're still with Henderson and Mullins winning every race. Favourite for every race. It's quite hard for the young guys to get a sort of a foothold into racing at the moment. And there's nothing against Mullins and Henderson. They're absolutely brilliant trainers, brilliant racehorses. And if I was a multi-millionaire and had a horse, I'd probably send it to Willie Mullins or Nicky Henderson too, because you can pretty much be guaranteed they're going to get you there, and you can pretty much guaranteed they're going to be blinking good.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? So he pays money, takes a chance. But I used to hate the fact that all the horses were with Mullins and Henderson. It's actually quite nice when you see these superstars, these rockets, these co-pector boards come out and think, nice to see, wasn't it? What a good horse that was.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, if it's for the sport and for the impressiveness of the performances, it's great. For actually betting on them, it's a bit of a nightmare. But anyway, speaking of what were we speaking of? I had an intro. I was gonna bring in David Stevens off a lovely line there, but I said something else.
I ruined it.
It's all right. It's my fault. I've absolutely butchered it. So I'm just going to say, good evening, Mr. Stevens. How are you?
Well, you were talking about betting and nightmares, so I thought you had
of course. Yeah.
You had an obvious segue in. Good evening, chaps. I think it's the first time I've caught up with you all this year, so you can tell Kills has got a bit of a Leopardstown voice, hasn't he? Clearly had a very, very good ring.
I've got a bit of a cold as well, to be fair.
Yeah. Keep your throat lubricated enough, Kills. That was a schoolboy error. Look, I mean, just going back to Nicky Henderson, and you say about your punters love a Henderson hot pot. Obviously, take last year out of the equation, everything went wrong. Previous year wasn't his best. But prior, I mean, Nicky Henderson's Cheltenham record, okay, until Willie Mullins came along and totally sort of rewrote all the record books, there's no better Cheltenham Festival trainer out there than Nicky. And it's great to see him albeit, as I say, he was in this position last year. So every trainer will tell you these next 5 weeks are the worst because really things can only go wrong. But in terms of the weekend, El Fabiolo was one of the best backed horses of the weekend, if not the biggest mover. So well done in identifying it, chaps. Shame about the second part of the job.
Yeah, albeit, admittedly, that's not as bad. The worst one is an anti-post ticket you've had for 2 months that goes at the second last. At least El Fabiolo, it was only 48 hours, but you know. So, have you got anything for us tonight, David? Before we crack onto a proper DRF review?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've got a few price boosts that will be running for the duration of the show. You'll find them all, but let's kick off with Segal, one of the horses we will be talking about for sure. But Segal to win the Arkle by over 4.5 lengths is a 5-2 shot from 15 to 8. Duration of this live show for 20 quid. So I know we'll be looking at that race a little bit later on in greater detail.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll be into that in a second. But just a shout out to Frankie Payne, who says, Ross Brierley, Tom Segal, Paul Kealy and David Stevens. The God Squad is all together again. That's right. We are the congregation. We'll be knocking on your door to give you the word of the Lord.
If we're holding the country to moral standards, then the country is more doomed than I thought it was.
Absolutely, but we'll see if we can belt out a hymn or two at the end of tonight's show, shall we? At least 3 of us will. Keels might have lost his voice by then. But anyway, we'll get into the Dublin review after this.
The big punting survey is back. Punters, it's time to have your voice heard on major betting issues. Plus, you'll automatically be entered into a prize draw for one of 5 £50 Amazon vouchers. Visit racingpost.com/BPS or scan the QR code to take the survey today.
Okay, right, so let's have a look back at the Dublin Racing Festival, and shall we? Like I said, it was kind of a mix of very impressive Willie Mullins winners or very well handicapped handicap winners who were very well backed on the day. But looking back at the DRF, Mr. Kealy, the question I'm going to ask you, which is what we were saying before, is, well, I'm going to throw you 2 questions. What horses from the weekend that you said weren't really on your radar before, but now you 100% have to put them in the mix? You personally, not just generally.
Well, I mean, the 2 novice hurdlers that won, because we knew so little about them. Well, I've got a couple of handicap ideas as well. I thought Stormheart was massively eye-catching in that handicap hurdle. I think he's my number 1 for the county at the moment. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's early doors really, and I'm half tempted to back Gaelic Warrior for the Ryanair. Yeah, because I think that's where he might end up. I mean, we don't know what the ground's going to be like yet, and I gather that with him that is going to be a massive factor because he isn't quick enough on decent ground, and we used to bank on good ground at Cheltenham, didn't we? In the last few years, we've been banking on soft ground because, that's what.
Or heavy.
Yeah, or heavy. Yeah, thanks. Don't remind me about that one. One of these days, it won't be so bad, will it? So I'm half tempted on that.
Yeah. Okay.
And obviously, Factor File will end up in the Ryanair now, won't he?
Yeah, I mean, he was the weird one of all those favourites I was saying earlier on. Four of those favourites all won this weekend. Ran this weekend. 3 of them won. One of them was Factor File, who shortened up considerably for the Ryanair. That seems to have been it's a weird one because despite the fact that he's running in Grade 1 staying chasers, it feels like all season people have been saying that he won't run in the Gold Cup and he'll run in the Ryanair. Yeah,
I mean, I said it a while ago. I know he won the Brown Advisory last year quite comfortably, but I didn't think he was doing a lot at the end. I didn't think he had much left.
And it wasn't necessarily a proper staying test in that small field anyway.
In a small field anyway, and the fact that he's got to go a furlong further anyway, in the Gold Cup, I can't see. He's not going to get any closer to Galloping de Champ before he finishes further away, and I can see him. He'll get beaten by horses that he's better than in a Gold Cup because he just won't stay it well enough. I mean, I have backed him for the Ryanair at a fair price, but he doesn't actually have the form in the book to be favourite, really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not that strong a favourite, anyway.
No, not that strong a favourite. I agree. He has got the profile I like for Ryanair, which is Cheltenham form over further, and just using that sort of class and stamina to the fore.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd certainly fancy him. Well, I just wouldn't back him at the price he is now.
Yeah. As for the others, Tom, obviously, I mean, you had a few horses. I thought Majbra both impressed me more and impressed me less in equal measure. Same goes for Ballyburn to a certain extent. I'll be honest with you, the board, the first time when I actually watched him win the race, I thought, oh, he was a bit keen and they kind of let him get on with it. Then I looked at the time in the sectionals and thought, oh, actually, maybe he is a good one after all. So it was, yeah, you can take kind of positive and negatives from the whole weekend. What shot to the top of your list and what was scratched off for you?
Well, I didn't like the way the jockeys went about the Irish Champion hurdle. I thought that was really weird.
Okay.
I would, the way they went really quick, really. I thought Stateman didn't look. I know he cantered home, but I don't know. I'm not. What do you know about Stateman these days? I don't fancy him. Lossy Mouth. Can you back her on the back of that? The funny thing is, I know I've got it wrong, and I backed Britain to win the Presbury Cup at 25-1 or something, which gave them a 3% chance. And everyone's saying, "Oh, look, they're finished now for the DRF." Actually, if you look at what happened, it actually enhanced the British chances because they were never going to win the Supreme.
Yep.
Final Demand and New Line are still joint favourites for the thing. John Bond's better favourite. Constitution Hill's a better favourite. So Gino's not a stronger favourite, and the Triumph looks like it's going to Britain as well. So while I do think Ireland will win, I don't actually think the DRF did anything to knock the chances of Britain. In fact, in the dogs here again. In the hopes of the British horses in some of the races were actually enhanced by the DRF. So
yeah, another example. For example, I think Final Demand was really impressive, but he looked like a 3-miler to me. So he might go for the Albert Bartlett, which means the new.
I don't think he will. I'll tell you why, Ross. Because they've got the French horse, Caroline Tisdale, who owns that, has the French horse Jetaway, who I'm told is definitely going for the 3-miler. So whether they'd run both their owned horses, I think Final Demand will run in the 2.5. But I still think the New Lions got a chance of beating him. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion by any stretch of imagination. So what I'm trying to say is that, I don't think everyone's talking about these wonderful performances, but we knew Galopin was going to win.
Yeah.
We knew they were going to win the Supreme.
No, you're right. And Hello Neighbour, for example, makes it look like a 2-horse race between Lalamba and East India Dock as well.
That's exactly it. So I don't think we sort of anything that sort of from the clouds that was going to upset one of the British trained horses, but I thought it was really good. I loved it. Listen, I'm a racing fan. I like watching good horses. I thought Kopek de Board was excellent. I thought Final Demand was excellent. I thought Paul Talland was brilliant on Galopin des Champs. How he managed them to go around so slow and give him an easy race. He only had to run for about a furlong, didn't he? You know what I mean? He's done that in the Irish Gold Cup.
It does help when half your rivals were from the same stable, though, doesn't it?
Of course it does. Yeah. Of course it does. But they didn't do that in the Champion Hurdle, did they?
No.
I don't know what was going on there, but they certainly didn't do that in the Champion Hurdle. But I thought he was just as good as anything else. And the handicaps were the handicaps, but they were won by unexposed horses most of the time, weren't they? And, you're back to normals and your McClory's and your Storm. He's not going to let them get. The handicapper's going to give them a fair old whack, I would imagine. So maybe I don't know. I think it's going to be a good Cheltenham for the British. I really do.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, you. So the fact that Henderson has just as many short price favourites as Mullins would suggest that. David Stevens, what of the big movers from the weekend tickled your fancy?
Yeah, I mean, look, in terms of big movers, there was none bigger than Kopek de Board, which we'll come on to. But Tom's absolutely right. The market is, those horses that won, like Ballyburn, he was already favourite for the Brown Advisory with the jukebox man out. He's still favourite, so nothing's really changed there. In terms of races like the Triumph Hurdle, I mean, St. Lucie was very well backed. She disappointed. And so Lalamba and East India Dock are now stronger favourites at the head of the Triumph betting. John Bond's gone odds on for the Champion Chase, albeit Solness himself. I mean, look, he's a 10-1 shot from 33s, having proved that win at Christmas was no fluke. I mean, it'd be fascinating if Ile Francais runs in the Champion Chase, which I hope he does. You've got Solness in there. Edwardson, if he was to take his chance, obviously had a huge price. I mean, it could be some pace they set, but I don't think we learned anything particularly new in terms of that. Kopek de Board almost came from nowhere. Final Demand came from nowhere, but they were races that either like the Turners with the Dan Scout horse, the New Lion. We have a strong British run already, or the Supreme, which was dominated by the Irish anyway. So I think it's there are reasons why the home team can, for those that care about these things, and if you've had a bet like Tom has, it is of interest. There are reasons that there's no need to get too despondent after the weekend we've had.
Actually, it's an interesting point, that Keels. If Gaelic Warrior had come out on his last 2 starts and won the way Solness had, what price would he be for the Champion Chase? And Solness is 12 to 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's obviously in the form of his life, isn't he? What he needs is decent ground.
Yeah.
Like, he'd have no chance if he got soft. I'm not sure he's an anti-posting, but I think, it's one of those, we're not giving him enough credit for what he's done. He could be right. It could be just a massive improver.
But he's only 7.
Yeah.
So. One more before we move on. One more I'm going to just throw to you that I think is a little bit interesting. Remember Absurd won last year's County Hurdle?
Mm-hmm.
He came over from France, joined Willie Mullins, won easily at Killarney on his Novice Hurdle debut. He was then a short price favourite at Galway, disappointed. But then his season before he won the County Hurdle, he pulled up at Leopardstown in the Grade 1 behind Conwell Potter. And he was ridden by Brian Hayes, big price, held up at the back, very eye-catching, running on 4th behind Ballyburn.
Yeah.
Sea of Sands at the weekend, joined from France, dotted up at Listowel on his maiden hurdle debut, ran the flat in a good race. Pulled up at Leopardstown behind Romeo Coolio, ridden by Brian Hayes, 33 to 1, held up out the back, ran on behind Kopek de Boer in exactly the same race the other day. I don't think he's as good as Absurd necessarily, but I just looked at those 2 horses. I thought they've also both had exactly 18 runs going into Cheltenham. They've run to very similar RPRs on the flat. I don't know. He was the interesting eye catcher for me, Tom. I thought because
is it 4 or 5 runs for hurdles?
Yeah, that's the thing. He needs one more run.
Needs one
that's
more
the
to go.
thing.
That's what I was going to say.
It might not be the county, but he's the only. I thought he's potentially attractively handicapped going forward. But anyway. Any eye catchers for you, Tom? Before we move on.
Well, I thought there was one today. I thought Ethical Diamond, who won at Punchestown, was very interesting for a handicap at Cheltenham. I know they've always loved that horse. Yeah. They've always loved him.
I backed him at massive prices for the Triumph last year, didn't I?
Yeah. Well, because he was the Lummox who ran really well at the DRF last year, wasn't he?
Correct. And he's sort of typical Willie Mullins. While everyone's talking about the DRF, he runs and wins a maiden hurdle today, and that was his. How many runs has he had now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that was his 5th run, unsurprisingly.
Yeah, and he doesn't really want heavy ground either, does he?
No.
Do the owners have any history recently of doing this?
Yeah, funny who owns that one. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
I just thought that was quite interesting, wasn't it?
What else have we got? Luke Rawson says, "What are you doing talking about Sea of Sands? Don't ruin the price." I don't think I'm not gonna have an impact of that, Luke. I can assure you for that. Bobby's on Solness at 25s. And Patrick Smith said, did David Stevens just say Hendo's the best Cheltenham trainer? Absolutely miles behind Willie Mullins. So Patrick Smith's having none of your nonsense, David.
I did caveat that with the fact until Willie Mullins came along and rewrote the record books, Nicky Henderson was the man for Cheltenham, wasn't he? I think his record backs that up.
Fair enough. And Brian Galt as well, who is very much a man for all the festival stats, says 11 festival winners last year came from the DRF, but only 4 actually won at Leopardstown. So lovely stuff, Brian. Thank you very much. Right, okay.
Sorry, Ross, just one more thing. Galopin de Chambre, obviously, I mean, what a champion he is. News today that Jerry Colombe is out for the rest of the season. Of course, last year's Gold Cup runner-up. That leaves Galopin de Chambre now 1-2, and it's going to take an act of God to beat him, isn't it, in the Gold Cup? I'm not even sure who's going to be taking him on. Banbridge, maybe his biggest rival, but yeah, Jerry Colombe out, bit of a shame.
Yeah, fair enough. That is a shame, yeah, because we would have liked to see those 2 go head-to-head again. Actually, just one more question before we move on, Tom. I've written it here, and I was going to ask you. You were quite vocal last week. Well, I say vocal in print. Can you be vocal in print? But is Gavin Cromwell the second best, or even the best trainer in Ireland at the moment? He's got nowhere
else, isn't he?
He's got nowhere near the ammunition. But crikey, I mean, when he thinks he's got a good horse, he knows exactly where to run and when to run them. And God, they find tons at the finish as well.
They do. That back to normal. I mean, That's probably going to be, I don't know what it was rated on Saturday, 130, probably be 100. I mean, it's going to do a stump town, isn't it? It's going to keep going through the handicaps, going to win a couple more, might win at Cheltenham, end up in a Grand National one day or one of those races, and he'll still be running around in 3 years' time winning big races. It's just the way he does it. Absolutely brilliant. And I challenge Willie Mullins to have 3 2-year-old fillies run at Royal Ascot and have 2 winners and a second, the last one at 50 to 1.
Yeah, fair enough. To be fair, given Willie Mullins' personality, he might well take you up on that challenge.
He might do, yeah.
Just to prove you wrong.
And he probably would have. He'd probably do exactly the same.
Yeah, right. We know now the Queen Mary. Right now, he's ringing people up. He's saying, "Get the checkbooks out. We're going to have the 1, 2, 3 in the Queen Mary just to prove Segal wrong." So. Okay, anyway, speaking of Willie Mullins, let's talk about what we know he's good at, and that is winning races like the Supreme Novices Hurdle, with Kopek de Board now into 5-4 favourite, which if I told you we'd have a 5-4 favourite in this race 7 days ago, you'd have said how many horses have been withdrawn. Romeo Coolio 5-1, Salvatore Mundi 6-1, Work Ahead 12-1, Kiss Will 14-1, the New Lion 14's Carnaque 14's Kawaboonga is 16-1. And it is bigger prices the rest here. And I was dead set against Salvatore Mundi as favourite in this race, Tom, and I thought that as you did, that Romeo Coolio was the absolute solid proposition. And, you know, could anything worse have happened than a Mullins novice winning by half the track over the weekend?
It was, I mean, it's so frustrating because it's the one that, I mean, when I do these races, I look through them and I went through Kopek de Board with a fine tooth comb, but he was a shorter price for the Turners. And so I thought, he's got stamina in his pedigree. I thought, Paul Townend, there's no way he's going to want to ride this one in the Turners. He's got Salvatore Monday for this race, at whatever price it was at the time, 3-1. So I thought, well, I won't tip Kopek de Board. He'll probably run in the other race. Now, he was 14-1 then. Now, oh God, I wish I'd backed him and tipped him then. But that's the way things go. I thought he was brilliant. On Saturday. He got hampered. He pulled a bit hard, but he jumped much better. Time was exceptional. You know, he was a lot quicker than the handicap. You know, he was a lot. You know, obviously State Man was eased down, but he was really quick from the second last home as well. I don't know. I think he'll take the world of beating. I do think Romeo Coolio is the obvious alternative, although his form wasn't. You know, the second or Budavasi got lapped, didn't he? But. Not sure that
he did, but then Carnaque was also in that race, so they're not that far apart.
They're not that far apart at all. And I do think Romeo Coolio's is still a stonking each way bet at 5-1. I've got no worries about that because I think this is a weak race. I really do. I don't fancy Salvatore Monday. They obviously do, the Mullins camp, so which makes me think he's obviously a lot better than he's shown. Work Ahead looked good and the form worked out okay, but I don't know.
It's a big ask, isn't it, to beat the couple ahead of him off the back of a maiden hurdle win?
That's right. And then then the New Line I don't think is going to run. And then so therefore you're looking at the rest of Willie Mullins' horses, and as we said earlier at the start of the show, they never get it. The fancied one always wins from the Mullins lot. You try and take them on with the second and third string at Cheltenham and it doesn't happen because we've got all the evidence now. So I think Kopek de Board will win, and I think Romeo Coolio is definitely the danger and the each way bet. Simple as.
Yeah, we've had. I mean, you know, sometimes you do get Supreme Novices Keels. That, you know, at Facile Vega Marine Nationale, it was kind of a head-to-head. Constitution Hill versus John Bond, of course. Altior versus Min a few years ago. Last year's Supreme was an odd one because the best novice hurdler went to the Turners. But you can occasionally get Supreme Novices where there's 6, 7, 8 horses who are fine, but then there's 2 horses who are well clear of the opposition.
Yeah.
Is this one of those races?
I don't think it's necessarily one of those races. We've probably got 3 here, haven't we? And at least they haven't run against each other.
That's true.
Which always makes it interesting. I think, you know, we've got horses that have won races, but probably very good horses that have won bad races by wide margins. I think 2 of them. Kopek de Board and Final Demand at the weekend, they're just very, very good, but I don't think there was that much depth in the races, and they fell apart rather quickly. I've liked Romeo Coolio for a while. I think they found out how to ride him. I think he's one of those horses with a ridiculously high cruising speed, but not a change of gear, so why not go from the front? And yeah, I thought I was quite impressed with him when he won there. I was totally ahead of Salvatore Monday, totally against Salvatore Monday, sorry, like you. And then I thought to myself, well, he did come from last to first in a really slow run race. Like, you can't put a big figure on it because they went so slowly, but he did manage to come behind everything. And obviously last year's triumph, I mean, that was only the second run of his life.
Yeah.
And it just worked out incredibly well, isn't it? So I wouldn't, I wouldn't, if I'd backed him, I wouldn't be totally despondent, even though now that Paul Townend is going to be riding the other one.
I kind of. The only thing is that Mystical Power and Imperial Pass both win that race as well, and they were both muddling races, and they were both not overly impressive in winning it, and they both did much higher figures. So it was almost as I don't know. It's one of those ones that the negatives weren't as bad as they could be, but the positives weren't as strong as they could be as well. I don't know. I was just a bit like, yeah, he was fine.
Ross,
Yeah.
Ross, can you do your impression of having a hood and a tongue tie on again? Because I really enjoyed that the other day.
I can't believe you've asked me that. You've asked me that now. But I can assure you that my sorry. For Salvatore Mundi, that's why you've asked me now. I see.
That's what I've asked you.
But I can assure you, I showed you that clip to my wife after the show. She went, "What the hell are you doing? You absolute lunatic!" So yeah.
That's why I asked you it. It's just he's got problems, isn't he?
There we go. I'll make it worse. But yeah, hood and a tongue tie is not a combination that either of us particularly like, is it, Tom?
No. And that's what he's been wearing. So he obviously pulls hard and can't breathe. Simple as.
Fair enough. Again, I'm here. I'm sat right here, mate. There's no need to say those things to my face.
I don't pull hard, but I can't breathe at the moment.
To be fair to Keels, he does settle very well.
Yeah.
Tailed off.
Is there anything?
Well, I mean, the thing is, Mullins has got 20 others other than those two in it, isn't he? And he's no stranger to having big price thirds and the like, I thought Carl Bauer was quite interested. The thing about a lot of these Mullins entries, most of them have got no chance whatsoever of getting enough runs into them to be in a handicap this year, of those in the entries. And Carl Bauer's only run twice over hurdles, big wide margin winner. Last week at Punchestown, and I thought he could be quite useful. And he'll be third string. He'll be a big price. We don't know. We don't know how good a lot of these are, do we? So I thought he could be one to keep an eye on, whatever race he ends up going in. But no, I think they're at the top of the market. Those three are solid. I wouldn't argue whatsoever with Kopek de Boer being favourite, because even though he was keen. Yesterday, he was. He learned a lot from the first time. He jumped a lot better. Probably wasn't quite as keen. So I mean,
imagine what you can learn between
exactly
this weekend.
It's a big learning process, isn't it, for these horses? He's only run 3 times in his life, and he's got just about the best form of those who are going to be in it, and he's going to be, he's going to improve again.
Yeah. And as you said, Keels, the fact that Romeo Coolio will go on might help him a bit as well, mightn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think, I mean, Romeo, 5-1 for me is, it's almost the each way better than Festival Romeo Coolio, isn't it, at the moment, I think, because, Elliott's had 8 runners in the two. He's not, he's not trained to blanket bomb this race either. He's had 8 runners in the last 10 years. He won it with LeBake, of course, but he's had Abacadabra placed. He's had Firefox placed, of course, last year. Did Felix Deschi's had another one placed as well? He's had 3 placed, basically. So Romeo Coolio is better than most of the horses he's running this race, and there's no other race he could possibly go for. So, I'd be pretty flabbergasted if he's not in the mix. David Stevens, anything else for you in the Supreme, or like I said, Kopek de Boer? It's not often you look at a horse in the Supreme at 5-4 and you think, actually, fair enough.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, it takes a lot to steal the headlines from Galopin de Champ, but Kopek de Boer did it. He's a 12-1 shot for this race prior to that, which is very unusual in this day and age that, he hasn't been backed ahead of a performance like that. We went 7-4 immediately after the race, 6-4 a couple of hours later, now 5-4. And as you say, it's hard to argue with that. It was a genuine wow moment watching it. Romeo Coolio, 5-1. He's unchanged. Salvatore Mundi's doubled in price. as we all think Paul Townend will be on Kopek de Borg. But look, a quicker pace at Cheltenham you'd expect in the Supreme. They always go hell for leather in the opening race there. That could suit the favourite even more. Look, on the basis of yesterday, he's going to take some beating. But at least in Romeo, Coolio and Salvatore Monday, because I love last year's Triumph Hurdle form. I wouldn't be giving up on Salvatore Monday, albeit he's going to need a different jockey. But look, if you are not totally impressed by Kopek de Borg, I'm not sure there's many out there that weren't. It's 3-1 that either Salvatore Mundi or Romeo Coolio wins this opening Supreme. But 5-4 now about the favourite. Can't really argue with that.
Well, Dave, what sort of price do you think he'll, because you bookies like to get these favourites on the first race. What price do you think he'll be on the morning?
Honestly, I think he'll be this sort of price. I could see him shortening further anti-post just because he'll be put in Ackers and but I think come the day, you're right. Well, people will want, look, as always, it will depend on the opposition but things as they are now, I think he will be this sort of price. I think, we saw the move from 7-4 into 5-4. Wouldn't surprise me if we see him shorten again, and then on the day they'll try and get him.
So you wouldn't? There's no point in backing him now, really.
Not
Tricky,
at 5-4. Yeah.
I'm just looking back.
He's not going to get a lot bigger.
Well, I'm just looking back at, for example, the shortest price, apart from you've had to appreciate it, for example, but that was a weird year, wasn't it? But it reminds me a bit of Duvan back in 2015, who, when he won the Moscow Flyer, was 5-2 after winning the Moscow Flyer, and then went off 2-1 after drifting from 7-4 on the day. So he might get just pushed out just because, why the hell? It's first race of there. Why the hell not? I guess on that. But he's not going to go a huge price, is he? But still, anyway, there's just an example of a previous horse who might be similar. As for the rest, Payne's on a big price for Kopek. Earlier, Ali says, no matter which race he goes for, Kopek de Borg wins. So that's a strong opinion for you. And Devo says Keels really is the Santini of the pundit world. There you go. Yeah, okay, I could see
a big lummox.
Yeah, but a talented one at that. So there you go.
But disappoints you in the end.
Yeah. well, no. Look, wins hearts but just look. Anyway, look. Let's move on. The chat's thrown me off again. Okay, let's have a look at the Champion Hurdle, shall we? Constitution Hill 1-2, Brighter Days Ahead 9-4, Sagino 3-1, Lossiemouth 3-1, Stateman 6-1, Kitsball 16-1, Burdett Road 20s, Brentford Hope 33s, and bigger prices the rest. Again, another market where quite a few of the horses in the betting are trained by the same people, and quite a few horses in the betting have got other races on their mind. It would take a very disappointing outcome at some point over the next few weeks for Sagino to turn up in this race. So touch wood, that doesn't happen, of course. And there's not too much else to get involved with here. So Constitution Hill is a 1-2 shot. Are there any angles in here whatsoever, Keels? What's the Champion Hurdle line?
I'm assuming that's non-runner, no bet, is it?
Yeah.
It is. I was about to say, I should point out.
160% or something.
I was going to say, get the calculator out, Steve.
More than that.
It is non-runner money back, absolutely.
Right, okay. It was great to see Constitution Hill come back, wasn't it? But we still don't know whether he's right back. He had to work for the first time in his life when he beat Lossiemouth. That was understandable, obviously, for first run for a year. And then last time was a waste of time, wasn't it? It was an exercise gallop against...
It was a farce, wasn't it?
Against rubbish. They went really slowly. I think, even the horse that got beaten 25 lengths in the Triumph trial was faster.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, I think there was hurdles at Southall today that probably did a better speed figure, given how slowly they went in that Constitution Hill race.
Yes, he made a mistake at the last. I mean, but it didn't tell us anything other than that he's miles better than horses that we already knew he was miles better than in the first place. So there is hope. Obviously, if you're looking to oppose him, I gather most people seem to think Brighter Days Ahead is definitely going to go for the mares, which is why she's a hell of a lot shorter for the mares than Lossiemouth is. She has better form anyway, obviously, but yeah, it'll be disappointing if she doesn't.
Let's be honest, it would be really, really disappointing.
But it'll be standard, won't it? I mean, look at the horses, look at the mares that won the Champion Hurdle. They still went to the mares first.
Yeah, that is true.
You know what I mean? And, you know, Lossiemouth's done that, so she's more likely to go for the champion, but she comes in there off a fall.
Yeah.
And we still don't know what that means for her. We still don't know whether she's any better at 2 miles than she showed at Kempton, because that was her first run over 2 mile for more than a year.
Given how weak the mares and possibly the champion hurdle is there a possibility that Brighter Days Ahead runs at 3:20 and at 4 o'clock? Because I mean,
yeah,
it would genuinely be disappointing though if she doesn't go for this. I mean,
yeah, genuinely disappointing.
She's in the
but,
form.
you know,
She's not obviously at her peak because it's still early days. But how many horses win a Grade 1 beating last year's champion hurdle winner by 30 lengths and then don't go for the champion?
Yeah,
hurdle?
I know, but that's the problem with having the mares race at the festival. Now, I've no problem with the mares championship, but I just don't see why they don't run it in January at the trials meeting, and then they can run in the championship, and the really, really good ones can have a crack. You know, but at the moment, one of those two is definitely going to end up in the mares, aren't they? You'd think that one of them will.
Well, or run it at Aintree when you've got a two and you know, it goes the other way, the option, doesn't it? Like I don't know, it's just frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's in the way, and it'll always happen as long as the mares races run at the festival. And that's the,
well, let's say
the
if she did run. What price would you back her at? What would you think she was a reasonable price, assuming that it's the lineup we're probably going to expect, which won't be many of these.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go any shorter than she is, to be honest, right? Because I think, you know, Constitution has done enough to suggest he might be as good as he was.
Yeah.
You know, and he deserves to be the favourite. And you know, I think Brighter Days Ahead could be very, very, very good, no doubt about it. But she does go into there having been beaten in a festival race that she probably should have won.
She's her last two RPRs are both, you know, Constitution Hill's his last 3 runs, they're better than 2 of those
absolutely.
runs.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
she's running to a very high level already.
Yeah, she's running to an incredibly high level. We know what level Constitution Hill has been capable of.
Yeah.
He's given an indication that he might still be capable of it. We just haven't had the proof, have we?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, to be honest, it's not, you know, for me. It's a no bet race. It's fascinating. It'll be fascinating if they all line up. Obviously, we know Segal doesn't line up unless Constitution Hill doesn't get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be great to see him there. I would still agree with Constitution Hill being favourite.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you probably. It's just a shame. It is a shame because I mean, you've battered State Man off the track. Lossiemouth's coming off the back of a fall. Segino's not going to run. Constitution Hill.
I mean, that definitely wasn't State Man then, was it? I mean,
no, this race is absolutely there to be shot at, Tom. To that really. To have a crack at and I guess you're right. It's not their fault. The problem is if you put an easier Grade 1 40 minutes earlier, we can hardly blame Connections. But I just really do want to see those two go head to head.
Yeah, it'd be great, wouldn't it? I like Hills. I don't think she's going to run. It's just an Apples Jade all over again. She's miles better than Apples Jade, but it's just going to be what happens, isn't it? Sorry, I've got a very noisy dog here that's about to bark. It's got a thing going, but. I think she won't run, and therefore, how can you back Lossiemouth after that? That was one hell of a fall on Sunday, wasn't it? She took a perler. Who knows where she's going to be? State Man, it's going to be controversial because he's won twice at the Cheltenham Festival and finishes second. Not quite totally convinced. He's absolutely in love with the track. I thought he could, he won the county hurdle okay, but it was. He should have won it. He was off 140, and then he was only a length in front of Irish Point last time in the champion last time. So while he's good everywhere else, I'm not convinced he's back to that level, and I'm not sure he likes Cheltenham. So it's sort of if Brighter Days Ahead doesn't run, you're sort of struggling, aren't you, to think of what is going to beat Constitution Hill.
Well, I mean, I don't think he won't beat him, but surely Burdett Road. Stumbling into third at 20-1 is the only thing I could look at this market.
It's possible. It's possible. Or the mare who beat Brighter Days Ahead last time could sort of be ridden for third, perhaps, because I think Burdett Road's got one way of running. He goes hard and he goes fast, and if there's a few in there, to sort of pick up the pieces if he tires late on, if Constitution Hill sort of chases him down, I don't know. I think it's really, really hard to find something to beat him after what we saw on Sunday. Now that might all change. Obviously, we they might come back with Lossie Mouth's brilliant. She's working the house down, and she might be very strong on the day, and you give her a chance. I'm a little bit against Stateman even after his victory.
Yeah.
Still not convinced he's back to where he was, and I'm still not. I mean, he couldn't beat Constitution Hill. I don't know. I don't fancy him. As you say, maybe Birdshead Road.
I'm just going to clarify a couple of things on the chat, by the way, because a couple of people are saying there's no chance Segal will go for this race. I mean, the reason Segal is still in that betting is in case something goes wrong with Constitution Hill, in which case it might be a different matter. And secondly, someone's just said these guys are trying to talk people into betting against Constitution Hill. Don't fall for it. And Finn typed that as
I don't think any of us have actually said that.
No, but Finn typed that at the very moment that the sentence coming out of your mouth was, I don't think I could back anything against Constitution Hill, and I think he'll win. So just want to clarify a couple of those things. But the reason Segino's in here, Tom, is just in case, right?
Yeah. I mean, also, he's same ownership as Stateman, isn't he? So if Stateman was to go wrong and he flubbed his lines, he might run here. I don't know. The Donnellys might want to run her in the Champion Hurdle. They've got obviously some good runners on the first day, haven't they? So, well, they won't have if Segal moves from the Arkle to here, but I can't see him running. Kitzbühel has no form that gives him any chance, and the second caption there is you just can't really fancy it. So I was really looking forward to the Champion Hurdle about 48 hours ago. And now I don't know where to go because I don't think I can back Stateman or Lusty Mouth or be interested in them against Constitution Hill. And I still don't think Brighter Days Ahead will run.
No. And again, but David, it's another one of those races where if we had Constitution Hill, Brighter Days Ahead, Lossy Mouth and Stateman all turn up for this, regardless of whether Constitution Hill won by half track or not, it would be a proper Champion Hurdle lineup. Unfortunately, we won't necessarily. Although to be fair, well, I don't know. We don't know who's going to turn up, David. Oh dear, it's probably Constitution Hill versus Stateman. It'll be a 4-runner race.
I think firstly, I will just clarify again. We are non-runner money back, so the Segal is in there. Don't worry. If he doesn't run, which he probably won't, but he could. It seems at the moment, and obviously things can change, but Brighter Days Ahead looks set for the Mayor's Hurdle. The connections have said they're going to go for the race they can win. And it looks like Lossy Mouth is going to continue and come here, albeit if Paul Townend didn't desert Stateman yesterday, it's hard to think that he would desert Stateman. I think Stateman is not dissimilar to Romeo Coolio in the last race. He's an absolute knocking each way bet because I hear what you're saying, Tom. His victory over Irish Point wasn't huge. I don't think he'll beat Constitution Hill. I think Constitution Hill will win. But Stateman for me, the second best horse in the race. He was 9 lengths behind Constitution Hill 2 years ago. But he could easily fill that place once again. Beyond that, I just don't think there's anything good enough. Lossy Mouth is the big unknown, but she comes into it off of a defeat to Constitution Hill and a horrible fall yesterday. So, I think a repeat of 2 years ago, Constitution Hill to beat Stateman. Yeah,
absolutely. To be fair, that is, Stateman, the run at Leopardstown in December was his only run in 2 years that he's run below 160. And he's a 6-1. I mean, what will he be on? He'll be, if the other two don't turn up, he'll be, 3-1 second favourite, Keels?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, he is the second best horse in the race, isn't it? I get what Tom's saying about the not necessarily being at his very best at Cheltenham. I definitely don't. He wasn't at his best for some reason last year because that run was considerably worse than when he was second to Constitution Hill in my eyes. So, but we already know he can't beat Constitution Hill, don't we?
Yeah.
We'd like to have known whether Lossy Mouth could beat him.
Yeah. If buts and maybes, eh?
She's not out of it though, is she, Lossy Mouth? If she can, listen. No.
She was right as rain, apparently. By the way.
Yeah. Like I said, it's just. We're going to move on because it's making. The more we talk about this race, is the sadder it's making me that the Champion Hurdle that we deserve doesn't actually exist and won't happen. Like I said, Constitution Hill versus Brighter Days Ahead, Lossy Mouth and Stateman with a few other in the mix is a cracking lineup. But yeah. Anyway, okay, Segal 4-6 for the race that a couple on our chat thinks that he will absolutely go for, even if every other horse in every other race gets lost on the way to the track. 4-6 Segal, 2-1 Mashborough, and then a big jump out to Imperial Pass 14s with Load of Sud at 14s, Ballyburn 20s, Younger Bay 20s, Springwell Bay 20s, Firefox 25s, bigger prices the rest. Copy and paste what I said for the Supreme, copy and paste what I said for the Champion Hurdle here, Tom. On paper, it's a 2-horse race. It could well have been a little bit different after the weekend. To be fair, if Loda Sud comes and wins the Kingmaker at Warwick by half the track at the weekend, he could throw his hat properly into the ring. But otherwise, you've got two incredibly talented 5-year-olds going up against each other in the Arkle. And, look, I'd forget the rest of them. I'd just watch those two go. A 2-runner race in the Arkle would be fascinating between those two.
Yeah, I think there'll be 4 or 5 runners like there were when Galopin took on Bob Ollinger the other year, and I think it will be a great match. I love them both. I thought Madgeborough was really, really good. He jumped actually better on his debut, I thought, than he did on Sunday, whenever it was. But I think he's really good too. I think the two of them are outstanding. I mean, obviously, prefer at the moment. You can't go against Sergino because of what he did to Ballyburn at Kempton. But I love Madgeborough too. I think in time Madgeborough will go up in trip though, and Sergino is probably always going to. He's going to do he's going to do what Nicky Henderson did with Altior and all those other ones. He's going to stick around the 2-mile mark. So I would imagine he'd have a little bit more pace than Madgeborough. I think, barring accidents, he'll win. Madgeborough will chase him home, and they'll be a long way clear of the rest, of which I think there'll be 2 others. Probably Loda Sud, who he's just a nice horse, isn't he? He's just not as good as the other 2. He's a nice horse who ran really well in the county last year. Didn't need to be second. I thought the county might have been actually a better race than the Supreme last year. And you know what I mean? We sometimes we always think, the grade ones have to be better than the handicaps, but I don't know. I think Absurd and Loda Sud and that sort of lot have turned out to be better than the Supreme form. So I wouldn't be, writing him off as just a handicapper. I think he's a little bit better than that. So I could see him definitely running. And there's one not on the thing, Mr. Giff, who I had a few quid on at a huge price a few weeks ago, who just looked really good on his debut. They went really hard out front, which helped him. But it was a good time figure when he won. And what I liked about him is that he did it, unlike most of these novices have been doing it, he did it from behind. He had to jump in and around and behind horses and came through to win, to beat Tully Hill, to beat the same horses that Madgeborough had on his debut. So I could see him running into the frame. I saw him and Loda Sud sort of battling it out for third, because half of those aren't going to run. If Gidley Park was to run, I'd give him I like him as a horse, and I thought he was a revelation back to 2 miles last time, but the vibes are that he might leave Cheltenham alone and go to Aintree. So we'll see come the day. Maybe there'll be 4 or 5, but I think Sergino will win. I love Madgeborough. I think in time he's going to be up in trip though, so I think Sergino might have a bit too much speed for him. And I'm hoping Mr. Gift comes third, but I do like Loda Sud's just got a better chance than him really on form. So as we say, it's another one of those races. Favourite's going to win.
Yeah, probably is. I mean, he's some also, isn't he? He's 6 from 6. He's won on good ground. He's won on heavy ground. He's won right hand. He's won left hand. He's won on flat tracks. He's won on stiff tracks. And he's barely out of second gear so far.
Yeah, absolutely. They're both sensational horses, aren't they? I mean, Madgeborough, what did he win? He won the Triumph in the 3rd start of his life, or 2nd start of his life, maybe. And yeah, Sergino's only had 6.
Yep.
And exceptionally good. He could easily be the next Sprinter Sacra. I mean, to run that sort of level, it's not far off place claims in the Champion Chase at that sort of level, and first time out over fences. So
to be fair, he's a better hurdler than Sprinter Sacra was when he went over. I mean, to win the Christmas hurdle like he did is. I'm trying to think of a better.
Yeah, it was a Sergino to win the
Fighting Fit.
Fighting Fit, sorry, not the Christmas hurdle. Yeah, sorry.
It was a dreadful race, though, wasn't it? Really.
Yeah, you just don't get many.
But yeah, I know what you're saying. He is clearly an exceptional horse, and he jumps really well. And Madgeborough is capable of jumping exceptionally well as well. I mean, if you notice, if Mark Walsh asked him for one on the other day, he flew, and when he let him pop on, he made a mess of him a couple of times. Yeah. So it might be the sort that needs his mind made up. Is he in danger of setting it up for Sergino by going that hard? Because it seemed to, I think the time was pretty good, wasn't it? I think, he went hard enough then. Is he going to do that?
Yeah. Especially if Gidley Park did good, you might get another one trying to take him on early, potentially.
Yeah, you might do. And all of that will suit Loda Sud. I'd rather back Loda Sud each way now than Madgeborough to beat Sergino for sure. Because I think he's going to be clear 3rd best. If they you know, he's got to improve a lot. I don't think it's possible. It's very hard to look that impressive at Sandown. And he only beat Touchme not 3 lengths, whereas Madra beat him 9. So we know how much he's got to find. But we know that he handles a fast run race at Cheltenham. And we know that he handles Cheltenham over fences because he absolutely gagged up there the time before. So I think he'll definitely be in the frame, and I can make a case of 14-1 each way being value. But I don't really expect anything to beat Segal.
No, fair enough.
He just looks very, very special.
I mean, obviously, like you said, we've only seen him once over fences. So someone on the chat says that that's often a bit of a red flag for an Arkle runner potentially. But he is, of course, entered at Newbury at the weekend. I mean, he could look even better at the weekend, couldn't he? So
yeah, he could beat established tracers doing handstands, couldn't he?
Yeah.
Like, you know.
I tell you what, though, he's got the race on at Newbury is harder than this, isn't it? I mean, okay, Madbra's in there, but he's got lots of good horses in against him.
They're not mugs. They're not mugs by any stretch of the imagination. And if he beats them, he's going to go off very warm favourite, isn't he?
Yeah.
If he beats them as comfortably as he dealt with Ballyburn, you know, I mean, Ballyburn, you know, is officially like the best winner of the Turners for 25 years, and he's beating him in a canter over fences.
Yeah, on his first start.
Yeah, on his first start. So
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, you just can't argue with him being favourite. You can't argue with him being odds on.
No, Mr. Jiff was you backed him in the Supreme last year as well. Do you think he could get into third for Mr. Segal?
I mean, it's all right coming from behind in that race the other day, but he's going to be so far behind if that's the way he's ridden.
Yeah,
he's got no chance, has he?
He's quite fast, Keel.
he's got no chance, Tom says.
Yeah, I understand that, but he was a long way behind when he won there, and it might have been, you know, a really clever way to ride him. But it
might have been, but I just think there's going to be 4 runs.
Yeah, it's possible, but he's just going to be so far out of his ground, isn't he?
He's only got one to. My hope is he's only got one to blow out.
Yeah, that is true. But I mean, again, you look at, like I said, Segal, 6 from 6 done this, that, and the other. Mr. Jiff, including his flat runs, is 2 from 16, and has only won a maiden hurdle and, like I said, a bit
all right, Ross. All right.
No, I'm just saying. I agree. It's such.
He's 50-1 for God's sake.
No, I know. Look, I'm saying that the middle ground of this grade is of this what's the word I'm looking for? Division is what I'm looking for. Is much of a muchness that you want to see Segal versus Majabra, but yeah, I do think Mr. Jiff could easily run into third.
When you get a great match, right? It's amazing how many times one of them blows out. A bit like Lossiemouth
Very true.
the other day.
Yeah.
When we had Gallopin against Bob Olinger was the one that blew out, but ended up winning it because Gallopin fell. Like, you know, so you know, it could happen like that. Something could happen.
Yeah, that is true. But then you also I'm just looking back. You know, I'm thinking like Altior versus Min, for example. They were always 1-2. You know, they were 1-2 in the Supreme. They were 1-2 in the Champion Chase. It was so sometimes. Yeah, it actually makes me think of that's the last time I saw, you know, Altior versus Min was that kind of a similar-ish division over 2 miles. But anyway, 4 to 6 Segal. David Stevens, what are you making of the Arkle? Are you a Segal or a Majbra man?
I love them both. Majbra should never have won a Triumph Hurdle. I mean, he's a giant of a horse last year, so to go and win a Triumph Hurdle tells you how talented he is. He's transferred that to fences as you'd expect. But Segal, to do what he did on his first start in public over fences was incredible as well. And he's 1-2 to win on Saturday. If he does that, he's going to be at least 1-2 for this race. It is always dangerous to bill it as a match because invariably, you know, it doesn't pan out like that in the race. But these two could certainly serve it up. Kills is absolutely right. Loda Sud is the obvious each-way alternative at this stage. He's a Cheltenham winner. He's a Grade 1 winner. He'll shorten if he wins the Kingmaker on Saturday. Mr. Giff is now a 25 to 1 shot, Tom, obviously as a result of you putting him up. Honestly, Segal probably has the speed over 2 miles to beat Majbra, but these could be 2 horses that we're talking about for the next 4 or 5 years. Just one, looking around for something at a huge price, and it's a bit of a long shot. Only by Night, a mare trained by Ireland's best trainer, no less, Gavin Cromwell. She's actually in at Exeter on Sunday, so it'll be interesting if she comes over. She's got obviously bundles to find, but what was the Irish mare that won the Arkle, put the kettle on a few years ago? Mm-hmm. So look, it can be done, but the big 2 at the top look so special, and Segal potentially, you know, we're already talking about could be the next Sprinter Sacra.
Absolutely, lovely stuff. Okay, right, we'll get our best angles from tonight's show very shortly. But before we do, just talking about what's coming up the rest of the week, of course. It's quite a quiet week anti-post-wise, Tom, for the vast majority of us. Unless, of course, you've got Secret Squirrel tattooed across your chest for the hurdle at Newbury this weekend.
Yeah. I've backed Secret Squirrel and Navajo Indy, so I'm looking quite nice there. But it's a tough race. There's loads. Yeah, actually, I'm not sure it's that tough a race. Actually, I mean, the Irish horse came out and it unfortunately got injured. Brave Troop. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Secret Squirrel. I think he might win again.
And obviously Sugino is in the Game Spirit, which again I'll just have a look. Horses who came from the Wayward Lad to the Game Spirit. Sprinter Sacra came and won. Altior came and won. Dodging Bullets came and was just touched off into second. So it's again, trainers are creatures of habits. It looks an obvious stepping stone for Sugino. Yeah,
very much so. Yeah, I mean, lately all the top horses have gone to the Clarence House, haven't they? So you get sort of Grade 2 chasers really running in the Game Spirit, and if there's a real top class novice, and as we've seen, Nicky Henderson's already done it twice. You're not going to be surprised if he hacks up there, are you?
Yeah. Anything interesting you're looking for either Dem and Chase or in the big handicap hurdle that Tom's already nailed his colours to the mast?
I was beginning to look at Teller the name, but I've only just started looking, to be honest.
Yeah. So that was the first one.
Yeah.
So when you've looked at every single horse and slightly overcomplicated by the weekend and your first choice wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean,
I do love it when they jump straight out at you.
Yeah, agreed. And then, like I said, you do look at every other horse, David, and you go, my subconscious was right first time I've asked him.
Yeah.
Or in your case, maybe not.
Yes, you were wrong 19 times in a row.
But only subconsciously.
Yeah. Okay, before we get the bets for tonight, David, anything you're looking forward to this week?
I'm looking forward to seeing Sugino, just because what he did at Kempton was so special. And the Secret Squirrel is already into 4-1.
There you go.
Remember Secret Squirrel, David?
Of course I do.
Yeah. It's the first time a seagull's had such an impact on a squirrel, that's for sure. Possibly. Anyway, I'm gonna WhatsApp David Attenborough, see if that's true, and then we'll be back with the best bets in a second.
We're into the final bend of the Coral Fan Derby, where racing lovers of the UK are in a spectacular contest. And watch this, he's shaking his phone like it's a pocket-sized maraca. They're all getting rewards now. He's shaking it, she's shaking it, they're all shaking it. Play the free Coral Reward Shaker to win guaranteed daily rewards and offers. Coral, we're here for it.
Okay. Anything we talked about tonight, Keels, that you might be tempted to put your money on?
I'm half tempted with a small each way bet on Load of Sud. But, it's one again, I don't expect him to win. I might back Romeo Kealy. I don't really expect him to win either. What about the Favs Treble? Stick Blighter plays ahead in for the mares and hope she doesn't do an Annie Power.
Yeah, that's true. What's that about? 7-1. Something for the treble, for the treble or the fourfold. Tom?
No, exactly the same. I mean, the problem is was watching Keels on the telly in Ireland the other day, and Johnny Deneen came on and said, I don't really like backing horses that I don't think can win in each way, and I'm a bit the same. So I struggle. I have to be really big prices. Don't like sort of just getting my money back. I don't think that's that's not the way I really bet. So they have to be really big prices, and I don't think there's anything at really big prices to back each way against these horses. I like Romeo Coolio. I've backed him, but I think Kopek de Boer did something really exceptional on Saturday, so I really don't expect him to win now.
I know you don't like getting money back, Tom, but what if Romeo Coolio and State Man both stumbled into the place and you could double your money?
Yes, it's true. It's true, you could do that.
Yeah, that's right. David Stevens, it's a great bet. I mean, you are, Coral representative. Absolute filth each way double. What do you think?
Absolutely filthy each way double. I've got it written down here. That was going to be my ending for this. James Knight will hate it, but it's exactly the bet I'm going to place. The treble on the three favourites we've talked about is just over 9-2. Chuck in the mare, Brighter Days Ahead, and you're looking at almost 8.5 to 1.
Look at that.
Only got about 4 winners on the spin.
Yeah, exactly. At Cheltenham in 5 weeks' time, and hope they all turn up. Yeah, okay. Anyway, we'll be back next Monday night, where hopefully there'll be a bit more juice in the markets that we're talking about. I think. But anyway, nice to see you, Keels. To see you, nice.
Yeah.
As Brucey would say, and and then next Monday we'll. I don't know what we're talking about next Monday, but it'll be Cheltenham, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, I'll be able to speak then as well.
That is true. Tom, have a good week.
Yes, looking forward to it. Going to America to watch my son play basketball. So won't be around for Friday or next week's show, unfortunately.
Oh, well, that's a shame. But to be fair, if you can find anywhere slightly more chaotic than in the know, it's America at the moment, I guess. David Stevens, what about you? Have a good week.
I'm not going to America, so I'll see you Friday.
Oh, lovely stuff. Right. Good night, everyone. See you next week. No, see you on Friday. Actually, yeah, of course. See you on Friday first. Yeah, I'll be here. I'm going to book my train now. See you in a bit.